This is experience number 1 in a new experience in the art of living. You've just joined the ranks of thousands who have sat under the instruction of Professor Howard Watrous and experienced the thrill of seeing life in its fullest sense. You will never be the same after listening to the next 3 hours on happiness and cybernetics. Regardless of where you are in the world right now, by the magic of tape recording, we're able to take you high above the skyline of the City of Roses and introduce you to Professor Howard Watrous.
First, I would like to congratulate you on choosing a course of action that will be painful. Change is always painful. It's not anything pleasant. I think that's the reason why 95% of the population remain the same, in misery. In other words, they would rather accept the misery of the present lot than the pain of the change for 3 weeks, for the glory of a life after change. Do you realize tonight that everything you've ever done from birth till now is the result of the fact that somehow, some way, you believed that it would make you happy? Now, do I know why you're here tonight? In other words, you have some hopes. Now, as long as you have hope, you don't kill yourself, either physically or emotionally. In other words, you're still trying. I would like to actually define happiness. I realize that most people do not know what it is, and if they ever should arrive at it, they wouldn't know that they were there when they were there, and therefore they'd never know when they were happy. If you think it's such a mystery, watch the way the advertisers capitalize on us. I cut this out of the paper. This is from one of the shopping centers. Full page. I'll hold it up so you can see it. Large letters. Happiness is a January sale. Isn't this something? That was one of their most successful sales. Now, the people who went over there were not going after merchandise. This is interesting to know. They used this article in a hope to go over and get a scoop of happiness. An ice cream company here in Portland a few months ago said happiness is 28 flavors. This is very clever because after you've had 27 flavors and you're not happy, then you know it's the 28th flavor that's the missing ingredient. We could go on for 6 hours straight naming commercial organizations that have used happiness as a slogan. In fact, whenever they're in a slump, a lot of companies know that that's the secret. We'll pretend that we're going to give some happiness out and then everybody will come. If you really could know what happiness is, you might have a better chance of arriving at it. I have a definition, and I want to give it to you slowly and deliberately, and we're going to zero in on the motivating force of our lives. Always, by the way, when you find any interesting concept or you're trying to define a real truth, there's two sides. And I think this is one of the reasons happiness is a mystery. In fact, it's such a mystery. I heard one of the leading psychologists in the United States give a speech the other day. He said, happiness is so elusive that he would like to compare it to a butterfly. If you chase it, you can never have it. So his recommendation was that you find you a nice rock along beside the bank of a creek and sit there, and then by chance it would come and light on your shoulder. That was a PhD. By the way, you might sit there the rest of your life, and chances are you would. Now, if you knew exactly what it was, in other words, I'd like to give you a definition you can put your teeth into. Therefore, could you leave this room tonight knowing what to do to be happy? Something concrete, something real. All right, here's the definition. 1/2 of happiness is satisfaction from achieving. And make sure that's the gerund form, ing. For many years, people thought happiness was achievement. And then they found out that after they arrived was when they were most miserable. I'm thinking of one executive. That morning he got in his Cadillac and started off to work. Only he didn't have a feeling that he should work that day. So instead of driving to work, he took a drive out through the country. And he spent the whole day thinking. Now, part of the thoughts that he had that day were in the direction of suicide. But he didn't culminate his actions in suicide. But he did scare his wife, because by the time he arrived home that evening, it was later than he should have come home. And when she called, she found out he hadn't been at the office all day. He walked in, he was looking far out, and she wanted to know if there was something wrong. He said, "There's nothing wrong." He said, "I just wish we were back in that old cheap apartment with the orange crates for furniture." Now this man had 3 Cadillacs. His wife looked at him and said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "No," he says, "all day long I've been thinking about my entire life, and the only time that I was ever truly happy was when you were working to put me through college, and the only furniture that we had was those orange crates." Now here's a millionaire who would give it all up for the orange crates if he could be happy again. Now he was happy at that time because he was achieving. But at that time, you know, he thought he wasn't happy. At that time he thought, "I'm only living for tomorrow, when I will have arrived and will have everything." Did he go by his happiness without knowing it? In other words, he slipped by. And happiness is not arriving at anything. Happiness is the process of achieving. By the way, the reason for this is very simple. When I arrive, I have no goal. And to be without a goal is one of the forms of insanity. And it results normally in death. To illustrate the actual principle of death, let's go to Cape Canaveral in Florida. And we'll assume we've just fired a missile, but there's no target. So immediately we notify the man on a control panel, and he pushes a button, and we destroy the missile. Have we wasted a lot of money? And it just blows up. I mean, that's the end of it. But why would we do such a thing? Well, we can't take a chance to have a missile going through space that might hit somebody. In other words, we don't want to destroy life. Now, we can't do this with human beings. If you are without a goal tonight, we say you have lack of goal orientation. Are you the same as a missile from Cape Canaveral without a target? Right, now you're going to kill people. You're going to damage people. We don't have a control panel where someone can push a button and blow you up. So you run your course, and then eventually you push the button and destroy yourself. So we say then that death is the result of lack of goal orientation. Now if you look at the diagram on the board, we have the whole plan of an ultimate goal. This will be an affectional field diagram, and point A will be the 0 point, which represents the present or tonight. Now there's 2 courses of action. Let's go through the negative one first, and then we'll go through the positive one. The negative goals means I have no ultimate goal, nor do I have more than one goal. The first goal will be point I. I gain momentum, I progress, and I reach point I, but my forward motion carries me past my goal. It's interesting to know, when I reach point I, I'm miserable because I've arrived. And I'm also doubly miserable because after I arrive, I have no other goal, so am I without a goal? Now I go into the first circle, which I'm going to call a quandary. And what happens is I go around in circles like a dog chasing his tail. I'm a person without a goal. Eventually, I think I'm going to get out of this. So I select a new goal at point J. I want you to notice these arrows represent the off-throw of centrifugal force. In other words, I have to change my course of action. Also, I have to gain new momentum. And finally, all the experience that I learned from point A to I is of no value to me. So we say that now I am 25 and I'm starting all over again. Have you ever heard of people doing this? So we say that everything they did up to 25 we call wasted. Now, the same thing happens at J that happened at I. I reach the goal and then I'm miserable again because I've arrived. My forward motion carries me on into the next circle, the next quandary. The same thing happens, only it's worse. I'm more disgusted. This time now I'm 35. After I go around in circles again, I decide I'm not too old. Well, I am too old to go back to college or too old for training, but I will grab me a new goal, K. And what happens? I reach K the same way I reached I or J, but this time I go into a real quandary. And we label this one premature death. I really am in my 40s now, and I have no more energy drive. Therefore, can I overcome inertia? So I say there's no use to have another goal. Have you ever known people in their 40s or late 40s that sort of give it up? In other words, why try? Then they gravitate down to the bottom of our affectional field diagram and they go into indifference. Oh, they'll live for another 20 years and make everybody around them very miserable. But for all practical purposes, we call them dead at this point. Right, now let's contrast that to a successful man. By the way, I've had this illustrated beautifully. When I worked for the state as a personnel technician, I would go over these job applications. And something interesting would happen. I pick up this job application. It would look like everything this man did from the day he was born until now had prepared him for this slot. Can you see? In other words, he was a natural, we say. I pick up another job application, and he did this, which had no relation to this job, which had no relation to this job. Did he have any cumulative value? Normally, we didn't hire him. Our job would probably be point J to him. Or worse yet, point K, and he would be no good to us. Now, I'd like to contrast this with the top, in the actual and the positive aura. Here we're going to set up an ultimate goal. And it's interesting to know, I set up my ultimate goal before I set up my 24-hour goal at point B. Let me define an ultimate goal. It's any goal that can't be reached until after I die. If you can reach it before death, it's not ultimate. So that's all we mean by ultimate goal. Now, how do you determine an ultimate goal? Go to a cabin by yourself for 3 days and ask yourself, where did I come from? Where am I going? And what's it all about? All right, let's look at the advantages. After I've determined an ultimate goal, then I put a 5-year goal, a 1-year goal, 1 month, 1 week, and 24 hours. Now, what happens when I start from point A to point B? I never arrive, can I? When I reach point B, am I thinking about B any longer? No, I've got my eyes set on C. Therefore, I never actually enjoy achievement. I always enjoy achieving. And here's the difference between success and failure. The man who arrived at point I was most miserable because he had achieved. The man who arrives at point B is most happy because he's looking forward to C. Now, an interesting thing happens too. My forward momentum carries me in what direction? The direction I'm already going. So do I have a head start? Instead of overcoming inertia in the negative syndrome, I have a push. Plus, by the time I reach D, does the experience of B and C add to me? Therefore, everything in my life that's in the past is just as if it had been ordered by God to prepare me for my next goal. Does this make you feel good? Now, I don't have any centrifugal force, no curve, no quandary, no lost energy, and therefore can I throw my whole being into this? When should you do it? Tonight. Immediately determine an ultimate goal, set up your intervening goals, and you're on your way. And then we don't have to worry about pushing any button on a control panel to get rid of you. And you won't be of any danger to anybody else. Now, achieving is not enough to be happy. I'm thinking of a famous breakfast in Chicago at the Edgewater Hotel, 1923. There were 9 men. One of them was a gigantic man in the steel industry. Another one, well, collectively they owned more money than the total amount that the United States government owned. This is quite a group of men. Let's follow them through their life. Do you realize that every one of them died broke? Several of them were committed for insanity, others committed suicide. Some of them were in exile out of the United States for things that they had done in the United States, but they did die penniless. One of them was released from an old folks' home to come home and die with his relatives. But if I wanted to go through the story of each one of those men, you wouldn't want that kind of a life at all. Now, is achieving alone success? By the way, to stack several $billion together in one pile is achieving. But is that enough to be happy? No, it helps. I don't believe you can truly find happiness in the nth degree on this earth until you are financially independent. I mean, it's going to be impossible to truly be happy when you have a lord and master of money, which you might consult now and then to find out if you can do this or that. But apart from that, after I do arrive at financial independence, I'm still not successful unless I know how to live. And we're going to call the second half of the coin of happiness well-adjusted. God grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I'm going to go through a little later this evening the psychological way to be well-adjusted. It will be the same thing as I just read. Let me give you a startling statement. I would rather live on the other side of the tracks, poor, and fight money problems and dread the end of the month, every month, my entire life, than to have money and be financially independent and not be well adjusted. Now I'll show you why. If I should suddenly have the money I need, I will have to face the fact that my real problem is me. Oh, I might first of all believe it's my wife. But after I divorce her and a half a dozen other women, I'm going to know what? It's really me. So then am I going to be head-on faced with it? Whereas if I'm living on the other side of the tracks, I will live in delusion all of my life, believing what my problem will be is only... Have you heard people say that? If I only had money to pay these bills, I would have not another worry on the earth. And as long as they can live in that type of a delusion, as long as they can believe that kind of a lie, do they know they're disturbed? No, they just struggle along fighting their common enemy. And will they have to even have a divorce? They couldn't afford it for one thing, but really, they don't really think it's each other. Because they're convinced it's only that dollar. Our only enemy is money. But you know, you're not going to be happy that way either. You're going to have to be financially independent. Therefore, are you going to have to be well-adjusted? And it isn't just money alone. What happens if you suddenly become successful and people begin to look up to you and you're not well-adjusted? You crack up. So then we say it isn't just money, it's any change in my environment. Now, if you could stay in your rut, which to me is a grave, the only basic difference between a rut and a grave are the dimensions. In fact, if you look at them a little closer, they're alike. But there's comfort here, is there not? There's security in a grave. I heard a speaker once, a lady walked up and she says, I want to be so secure I can't move. And he referred her to the closest cemetery. In other words, that's not what we want, is it really? We do not want the bondage of security. We want freedom. We want freedom to do whatever we want to, whenever we want to. And now we're getting closer to what we call success. Now we're going to do two things tonight. We're going to show you how to achieve. And we're going to show you how to be well adjusted. They have to go together. I had one man take the seminar, and he learned the basic techniques to double his income, triple his income, quadruple his income, but he only used it in the area of making money, which allowed his wife to have enough money to file for divorce. Can you see what he did wrong? He lost his sense of balance. So we're going to define balance. I'm going to use these concepts in my home life, my business life, my personal or spiritual life, and my social or recreational life. And then I will be happy. Now, success is our first topic. How can I be successful? What can I do to achieve? I could give you, and I will give you, the exact steps of achievement. But the steps of achievement are worthless, absolutely worthless, until we change your self-image. The one dominating factor in your life tonight is what you think you are. And I think it's only fitting that when we start a whole seminar of 30 hours, we must actually attack the most important problem. Because any other advice, any other consoling in any other area of your life is worthless if you don't change the self-image. All right, let's go into our self-image and let's go into exactly how we change it. Just the way I define it will show you the awkwardness of the word. For our definition of self-image, let us go back approximately, say 4,000 years before Christ. It is written, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." You know, this sums up not only the definition of self-image, but this also explains the concept of cybernetics. You know, if we take a pattern of continuous thinking that a man has, it's unrelated to an absolute. In fact, you know, it's only relative to that man's past experiences and to his own relationships with his own environment. Would I have an objective or a subjective definition? Subjective. And have we been taught not to rely on a subjective definition? Absolutely. There is nobody on earth tonight who has a correct self-image. You say, well, I know some outstanding people. Let me tell you that they're running about 1/10 of capacity. You are using tonight, if you're an average American, 1/20th of your abilities. Or let's look at it another way. You are using 1/60th of your brain cells. One lady came up to me after a seminar and she said, "The Creator sure made a mistake, didn't he?" That would be too good. No, the Creator didn't make a mistake. We are the ones that are making a mistake. We're not using what has been given to us. I've heard it said that if we were to build a computer to equal the one that God gave us, it would be as large as the New York Empire State Building, cost $3 billion, and take more water than the entire Mississippi River to keep it cool. By the way, the interest rate at 6% on $3 billion is $180,000 a year. Does God have a very good investment in you? In other words, what's His return on His investment? You say, are we really created all right? Are you sure there's not a mistake in the way we're created? Well, let me define it first. You are created as a genius. There's nothing wrong with that, is there? In other words, we are all geniuses. This is the only way God makes us. Now I look at just a few faces and you say, who? You. I was speaking at Lloyd Center last week to approximately 250 women. And I told them that they were all geniuses. And they looked at me like there was only one liar there, and that was me. Did you know within 2 minutes I proved it and everyone believed it completely? I'll do the same thing tonight. I'm going to discuss a particular type of behavior that every one of you have done many times, and there will be complete agreement when I'm through that only a genius can do it. Now, if at this moment you think you're not a genius, 2 minutes from now you'll know you are. That's some progress, isn't it? All right, let's assume I'm walking up to somebody who's very important, and I'm going to ask a very important question. And I say 4 words in my first sentence to talk to them. At the end of the 4th word, my subconscious sends up a flare to the conscious mind, and it says, hold it. My conscious brain turns around and says, why? Conscious brain's always asking why. It has no memory. It's just an administrative function. So there the conscious brain is, maintaining the same expression, but asking the subconscious why. And the subconscious says, well, we've been picking up 72,000 characters per minute through the eye gate. And we've been checking the wrinkle in his face and the mannerisms and the dilation of the pupil of his eye. And we've been comparing it against every other human you've ever talked to on our mass computers. And we don't know exactly why yet, but something keeps coming up that this is not the right time. So the conscious says, well, you're right all the time in the past, so we're going to go along with you again today. If it's not the right time, what do we do now? Now, the conscious is a little worried, but is the subconscious. It has unlimited power. So the conscious says, what do we do? The subconscious says, well, you just keep looking the way you are at him and don't change, and we will figure out a neutral sentence to fit those 4 words. Now the subconscious immediately drums up 30 sentences. They will all fit that sentence, but wait, why does it do 30 instead of 1? It compares. It shoves all 30 sentences into the computer, and what's it comparing with? These 72,000 characters per minute we've been picking up. Because it wants to do what? Match the sentence to his reaction so that we will have the most neutral of the 30. The computer kicks out 1 and says, this is the right one. The subconscious kicks it up, and then what do? You begin your 5th word. And does the person to whom you're speaking know anything has even happened? And you finish the sentence and talk about something else, and then you wait 3 months before you ask the question you were going to ask. And then she marries you. Now, does it take a genius to do this? It takes a genius to do that. And I would tell you that everyone in this room has done it.